The conversation between Martell Holt and Nell Fletcher was tense, emotional, and full of unspoken pain. What started as a casual talk between two friends quickly turned into a serious discussion about pride, heartbreak, and the painful process of moving on. It was clear that even though Martell tries to act like he's moved forward, deep down, he's still hurt by the reality that his past life with Melody is completely over. And this time, that realization came through something symbolic: Melody changing her last name from Holt. When Nell arrived to see Martell, the moment seemed simple at first. They greeted each other politely, with friendly smiles and casual talk about the yard, the flowers, and the wine Chris had sent over. But underneath that small talk, there was a quiet tension. Both of them knew this conversation would go deeper than just landscaping or dinner plans. Nell brought warmth and calmness, while Martell seemed guarded, almost as if he knew something emotional was about to surface. As they sat down, they both reflected briefly on the last time they saw each other, at the barbecue. That event, according to both of them, had been a bit chaotic. There had been awkward energy, especially between Martell and Melody. Nell mentioned that she noticed how Melody didn't speak to Martell, and Martell admitted that yes, it was noticeable and uncomfortable. Still, he explained that he refuses to let that kind of cold energy change who he is. He said that he will continue to speak to people, even if they choose not to speak back. That statement showed a lot about Martell's mindset. He wants to come across as unbothered, yet you can hear in his voice that it does bother him. Martell said clearly that he doesn't like rude behavior and that it wouldn't have hurt Melody to at least say hello. He even pointed out that they speak to each other in other places, so her silence that day felt intentional. He tried to play it off like it didn't matter, but the more he talked, the more obvious it became that it did. Deep down, it hurt him. For someone who once shared a whole life, a home, and children with Melody, even a small thing like being ignored can feel like a heavy reminder of how broken things have become. Nell listened, nodding with understanding. She didn't push too hard, but she gently shifted the conversation to what she really came to discuss: Melody's name change celebration. That's when things took a serious turn. She brought it up calmly, mentioning that Melody is planning to have a party to celebrate legally changing her last name from Holt back to her maiden name. It was supposed to be a joyful event for Melody, but for Martell, it struck a deep nerve. The moment Nell mentioned the name change, you could see Martell's entire energy shift. He sat back, his tone changed, and he became defensive. He said honestly that it made him realize that this whole situation, the divorce, the separation, the moving on, is now real. That phrase repeated twice said everything. Martell was finally admitting that the last string connecting him to Melody was being cut. When Melody changed her name years ago to Holt, it was a moment of unity, a symbol of love, family, and shared identity. Their children carry that same last name, Holt, and now, Melody choosing to let it go feels to Martell like she's erasing that chapter of their lives completely. He spoke softly but with visible emotion. He talked about how that name wasn't just a formality, it was tied to special memories, milestones, and moments that mattered deeply to him. He said it reminded him of when they had kids and built a family together. That last name represented everything they once stood for. Losing that connection, even symbolically, was like losing the final piece of that family image. Nell could see how painful this was for him. But she also made it clear that she's in a difficult position, being friends with both Martell and Melody. She said being caught in the middle is hard because she loves them both and never wanted to see them at odds like this. She told Martell that she was invited to Melody's name change event and that she plans to attend. That's when Martell's expression changed completely. He looked shocked, maybe even betrayed. The look on his face said it all. He couldn't believe that someone he considered a friend, someone connected to both of them, would attend an event he saw as disrespectful. Nell tried to explain that it's not personal and that she's just supporting Melody's new chapter. But Martell didn't see it that way. To him, this wasn't just a party, it was an act of disrespect. He said plainly that her having a name change party felt like a slap in the face. He compared it to those so-called divorce parties that some women throw, where they celebrate ending their marriage. He said it felt unnecessary and hurtful, especially since the divorce happened 2 years ago. He said, "We divorced 2 years ago." A divorce party? I understand. But a name change party? His voice carried frustration and disbelief. To him, Melody was being spiteful, as if she was trying to make a statement by having this event publicly instead of quietly changing her name and moving on. Martell even went as far as saying that the Fletchers, meaning Nell and Chris, shouldn't attend the celebration because, in his eyes, attending would mean supporting something that disrespects him. He said it wasn't just about the name, it was about the message behind it. He made it clear that he felt Melody's actions were meant to provoke him, to show him that she's truly done with anything that connects her to him. But Nell didn't see it the same way. She gently tried to reason with him, saying that Melody has every right to celebrate her personal growth and her new independence. But Martell wasn't hearing that. He took it as an attack, like she was choosing sides. He said that if someone goes to that party, they can't claim to be his friend because, to him, it represents disloyalty. Then came one of the most emotional parts of the conversation. Martell said that when Melody changed her name to Holt years ago, it was a beautiful, meaningful moment in their marriage. It wasn't just a name, it was their bond. They built a family under that name. Now, seeing her reverse, it feels like she's taking that memory and throwing it away. For Martell, who still clearly struggles with letting go, it's painful to watch her erase that part of their story. Nell could sense his hurt but reminded him that sometimes closure comes in the form of moving on. She said that Melody's decision isn't necessarily about him, it's about her reclaiming her identity. But Martell didn't see it as that. He believed it was intentional, saying that Melody having a party for something so personal was her way of rubbing it in. He said, "That's almost like a slap in my face." Those words summed up everything he was feeling. He felt embarrassed, disrespected, and angry. Even though he tried to maintain his composure, it was obvious that this news hurt him deeply. At one point, Nell reminded him that he had been warned that moments like this might come. She said, "Whether you saw this coming or not, I told you this a couple years ago." But Martell didn't want to hear that either. He immediately shot back, saying that he didn't expect Melody to be in his face like this. That's when the conversation got even more tense. Nell challenged him by asking, "How is it being in your face? You're not even going to be there." It was a valid point. Melody isn't throwing the party for Martell or to taunt him, it's for herself and the people who support her. But Martell couldn't separate his emotions from the situation. To him, it was personal. He said sarcastically, "Okay, cool, enjoy. It's all good. Enjoy the party." You could hear the bitterness in his tone. It wasn't about the party anymore, it was about him realizing how much power that moment held over him. Then the conversation took a surprising turn. Martell suddenly brought up the past, saying, "I could say you were in my face when you had the affair." That comment shocked Nell, who immediately said she had no idea what he was talking about. Martell, however, insisted that Melody had admitted to an affair, suggesting that she had been unfaithful during their marriage. He said, "Ask her, she'll tell you." Nell looked completely taken aback and told Martell she didn't know anything about it, promising that she was unaware of such details. But Martell didn't back down. He said it again, saying that what he's saying is facts. This shift in the conversation showed that Martell is still holding on to a lot of unresolved feelings about the past. Instead of just talking about the name change, he started bringing up old wounds, the betrayal, the accusations, the pain that tore their marriage apart. It showed that he hasn't fully healed, no matter how much he tries to act like he has. At the end of the conversation, Martell simply got up and said, "I'm gone." That was it. He walked away, frustrated, emotional, and clearly still deeply hurt. It was a scene that captured how much bitterness still exists between him and Melody, even after all this time. What made this scene powerful was not just the words exchanged, but what those words revealed. Martell is still tied emotionally to the marriage that ended years ago. While he tries to present himself as strong and indifferent, his reaction showed that he still feels ownership over certain parts of Melody's life, her name, her choices, and how she moves on. On the other hand, Nell's calm and balanced demeanor represented reason. She wasn't trying to take sides. She was just acknowledging that both Martell and Melody are on different paths, and while it's sad to see the past crumble, growth sometimes requires painful steps. For Melody, that name change is symbolic, it's about independence, healing, and reclaiming her peace. But for Martell, it's about loss, regret, and realizing that what once was forever truly isn't anymore. Martell's reaction also gives insight into his struggle with control and image. Throughout the show, he has often been portrayed as someone who doesn't like losing control or being embarrassed publicly. So, for him, this name change party isn't just about a name, it's about pride. He sees it as a public reminder that he lost his wife, his family unit, and the image of perfection he once tried to hold on to. What's ironic is that Melody's decision to celebrate this change isn't about him at all. It's about closure. It's about moving forward and no longer being defined by her past. But Martell's inability to separate himself from her choices shows that, deep down, he hasn't fully accepted the end of their marriage. This scene between Martell and Nell captures the emotional complexity of breakups, especially when two people share children and history. For Martell, every step Melody takes toward independence feels like a rejection. For Melody, every step she takes forward is about freedom. The difference in perspective is what continues to cause friction. Martell views things emotionally and personally, while Melody views them practically and spiritually. That difference in how they process pain is why they're still clashing even after being divorced for 2 years. The conversation ended without resolution, but it left a strong impact. It reminded viewers that letting go is not always clean or easy. Even when papers are signed and years have passed, emotions don't always follow the same timeline. For Martell, this is still an open wound. For Nell, it's about maintaining peace between two people she cares about. And for Melody, it's about claiming her power back even if doing so unintentionally hurts someone else in the process. In the end, what we saw was raw emotion. Martell might call it a slap in the face, but in truth, it's a mirror. It's showing him where he stands, still looking backward while everyone else has started walking forward. Melody's name change isn't about spite, it's about self-definition. And Martell's reaction, though emotional, proves that closure doesn't always come from time, it comes from acceptance. This moment on Love and Marriage, Huntsville perfectly sums up how unfinished feelings can linger long after love fades. It's a reminder that no matter how strong someone claims to be, healing isn't about pretending not to care, it's about learning to let go without bitterness. And right now, it's clear that Martell hasn't reached that point yet.